Hello, and welcome to our first ever ESSEC Knowledge Google Plus Hangout. So today we're going to be talking about business innovation, so what does that mean and how is it achieved? And for those Google Plus users that are joining us today, don't forget that you can ask us your questions at any time. Just post it in the comments section of this video, and we'll try to get to as many of those questions as we can. Just going to take a minute now and introduce all of our participants. So today we're with Eric Olander, joining us from Vietnam. He's the Vice President of the country's largest all-business news TV channel, FBNC, I'm sorry. My name's Sarah Brown. I'm the editor of ESSEC Knowledge. And joining us from Paris is Philippe Limontour. He is leading the Cloud Computing Solutions Services at CSC. Hello.
Hello.
And joining us from the ESSEC campus in Cergy is Xavier Pavie, is Senior Researcher and Lecturer and Director of ESSEC's Institute for Strategic Innovation and Services. Hello.
Hi.
And joining us from Singapore, from our Asia Pacific campus, is Yan Lee, an assistant professor in the Information Systems and Decision Sciences.
Hi.
Hello. So thank you everyone for joining us. And just to get started, as an introduction, I thought I would mention Forbes magazine recently published the 50 most innovative companies in the world. And among them, they had identified 3 key factors that really set those that led the pack in innovation. And those are their ability to leverage people, process, and philosophies. So I thought we could start with people. So how does the behavior of leaders matter? What are the skill sets that innovative leaders have?
Yeah, maybe I can have some first comment because I did some research in IT leadership. Actually, it's my first publication in IEEE Transactional Engineering Management when I was a PhD student in Singapore, in US. So we actually surveyed 89 CIOs, Chief Information Officers in Singapore, and actually the paper was based on echelon theory, which means characteristics of leaders will affect the strategy of the company. So our proposition is characteristics of the CIO, both demographics and personality, will affect the innovative usage of IT in the organization. And actually our sample, the result from our sample showed that extroversion in the personality and also openness in the CIO's personality, together with his educational background, will have a very significant impact on the organization's innovative use of IT and IT's contribution to the organization's performance. Yeah, I think this is a quite interesting support and add-on for the echelon theory, because we demonstrate personality is something that is quite stable, while demographics is evolving. Actually, in our sample, it shows personality, the CIO's personality has more obvious influence on the innovative usage of IT in that organization. Yeah.
That's interesting. If I can just interject with a little quote. Actually, the company that came out on top in the Forbes 50 top most innovative companies was the CEO of Salesforce, or Salesforce came out on top, and he's quoted as saying that he gets new ideas from networking with young entrepreneurs, so he's really open to new ideas. I think I spoke with Eric Olander a little bit about this, and he felt pretty strongly about this management style of openness. And
well, this is a particularly endemic problem in most large companies, because innovation implies change. Change is something that, depending on, as we just heard, the CIO, or depending on the...
Let's see if this comes back.
Can be very threatening. Are you not hearing me?
We just missed a little bit there, but I think it's working fine.
Okay. Well, I was just suggesting that innovation implies change, and change can be threatening, and depending on the culture of the organization. The other thing that's important too, I think, is geographical culture. You know, I just spent 2 years working in France. I'm now in Vietnam. I'm from America, and I found that introducing change in a French company was a radically different concept. There was a lot more resistance to any kind of ideas that were.
Mm.
So we should be happy that finally we got a Google Hangout.
Yeah, I mean, whereas I think different cultures embrace, I mean, here in Vietnam, change and innovation are more of necessities in order to evolve. You don't have the option. You have to constantly change because the economy is moving so fast. In the United States, there's a lot of celebration and talk of change, but people don't actually execute. So I think geographic culture plays a lot into that as well.
Anyone have anything to add?
I think I've seen in many companies we are helping people during the journey in transforming their business. And the first thing you have to take into account is the social part of the people. So that there are many silos in the enterprises, and so the first step usually is to open up discussions and communication with people. And second point is to allow people to take risks. As you say, when people are not willing to take some risk, they don't innovate. They are not open to change. So maybe that's why in France, people have a lot of things already on their hands, so they're not willing to take risks. So being social in the company and giving a culture of risk are important.
Yes, if I may just quickly something. As Eric mentioned, probably the main problem, could be around the changes, but it's also the question of the culture inside the company. And the main point is why people will give their ideas. And how could we create a very confident culture inside of the companies to be sure that the people will give their ideas and they will not keep the idea from them, or they will share with the people, or they maybe do the company by themselves. So the questions, and Eric mentioned that it's very classical questions about the cultures. If you are Japanese, if you are Chinese, if you come from France, Europe, or whatever, the question is how could we create a view, a special visions of the innovation process, and of course, how could we give some confidence for the people inside the companies, for your colleagues, for your employees, and for everyone inside. And I'm not sure about the distinction between CIO, CEO, or HR, whatever. It's a question of the culture of innovation inside the company.
What's an example of a company with an innovative culture? I mean, could we talk about Apple, for example, or?
No, Apple's not always a good example on the front, because the innovation is very tightly held in a small number of people, whereas at Google, which opens up 20% of its time for its engineers to do whatever they want, and then the top management supports failure and supports experimentation. That's a different example. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No. Did you have anything to add?
Oh, that's right. Eric's right about the question of Apple, for instance. If you look about some companies from, for instance, Starbucks coffee. For Starbucks, everything is dedicated to innovate inside your own restaurants. And if it works, you're supposed to give the ideas to the regional managers, then the continental managers, and so on. Starbucks it could be a good company for that, to share the innovations. It could be exactly the same thing with Singapore Airlines, for instance. Everybody at Singapore Airlines could innovate by themselves, and they could give them an idea to the managers and to spread innovation after. It comes from the base of the company.
If we can move on to our second point, what role does technology play then? Is technology, are new technologies, I mean, I mentioned cloud computing, are they helping companies move forward? And
Actually, I was in our first executive education workshop here, and we were talking about marketing analytics on digital platform. Of course, and it is related to big data. Everybody's talking about big data nowadays, and big data is definitely related to cloud computing. So actually, through this workshop, we want to educate the users how the company can leverage on big data to understand more about your customers, to get more insights from the data mining, and take actions to better satisfy them.
Mm-hmm.
Because think about 5 or 50 or 60 years ago, our corner shop owner basically knows every customers around the corner. Okay, so but nowadays the super chain like supermarket is a completely different situation. We are losing contact with customers. So actually, I shared an experience with the participants about Catalina coupon. This is 5 years ago when I first arrived in Cergy, France. I became a member of Auchan. So the first time I bought something in Auchan, after checking out, they print out a coupon for me. At that time, I didn't speak French, so I shopped with my friend. So I gave it to my friend saying, "What is that?" Then we discovered that we're receiving 2 different coupons. Okay, so this is very common in France at the time. So this is actually a manufacturer-driven coupon, which means if I bought Pampers diapers in the supermarket, I'm going to trigger a manufacturer coupon from Huggies. The Huggies will give me a coupon saying, "Hey, buy it for me next time, and you will have this discount." Okay, so I shared this idea with the participants. I think people from several big organizations in this executive workshop say this is a very good idea, and they think by mining big data, leverage on this technology, they will better understand their customers. Mm. Yeah, this is a very big trend.
So, in that sense, technology is sort of taking us back to times when we knew our customers better.
I think so.
Does anyone have anything to add on the technologies?
You know, most innovations rely on the technology stack. And I've conducted a study 1 year ago with the CIOs and CTOs on the way the enterprise were able to innovate, and only 18% of people say that their enterprise was ready to innovate, so that they had ideas and they were not able to put those ideas on the market. And the main reason was because of the usual capex model of the investing in the technology. So when people wanted to innovate, they had to tell the IT people how many computers, how many resources would need to start this innovation, how many computers, how many resources they would need the next 3 months, 6 months, and 3 years. Because it was an investment with the cloud computing, what I'm saying is when implementing the cloud models, the as a service model, the OPEX model, people are more are starting innovating because they know that they can have resources the next day. They have the good idea. If the idea is good, they can put the accelerator, and have all technology resources they need to push that good idea to the market, expand that to international markets. If the idea is not good, they can shut off all the resources they will need and stop paying for them. So moving from a world where I'd like to invest, and from a world when you can have resources on demand, allow people to innovate, because they are not, stuck with the way of they don't have to know if the innovation will work or not. Mm-hmm. That's the beauty with the cloud model. That's what I'm seeing in the company.
Anyone else have
Well, we have just to be careful that technology in innovations many times is just a mean, is just a tool, is just to bring something, is just to bring a service. We have to remember when Steve Jobs showed the first iPod, for instance, he just said, look about this iPod, it's just a device. It's not the main product. What's the main product for Apple? It's iTunes. It's how could we bring any services to you? So the technology all the time is very important today, but it's just to bring to you a service. It's just a mean. It's just a tool to bring to you a service of what do you want to do, to listen any music, or for instance, to rent a car. It's the case with Blue Car in US, for instance, or in France with Autolib. We all the time need to understand what the user wants, and according to that, we have to use the technology to develop and to offer to the customers a service.
And speaking of Apple, well, I have a quote here, or a question, let's say, does necessity drive innovation, or is it the other way around? So I wanted to touch on Xavier Pavy's notion of responsible innovation. Apple just came out with the iPhone 5, and it might be considered an incremental innovation. Is this responsible? Is it sustainable?
I guess no. The main important question about the responsible innovation is because we don't know about the uncertainty, and we cannot foresee the future. And about the case of innovations at Apple's, and we could see the number 5 of iPhone. But if you look about the iPod, just want to go back to the iPod. In 10 years, Apple developed more than 20 versions of iPod. And the question of responsible innovation is, does it make sense? Does it make sense to have 20 generations of iPod within 10 years? And of course, what about the recycling product? What about the pressure on the consumers? The question of the iPod product is very clear. We need, or we want, just to listen any music. But do we need any 20 versions to do it? It doesn't make sense. The question of responsible innovations probably starts in the Descartes century. You know, Descartes, the French philosophers, and he said very clearly and precisely that man should become master and owner of the nature. And the control of the nature, the control of everything. It could be, of course, the question with Apple, but it's also the question today with the nanotechnology, for instance. It could be the case with different products, such as our service, such as Facebook. And the question of responsible innovations is based on 3 main important axes. The first one, it's completely linked with Apple. The unique prism of answering consumer needs is not because a consumer said, I want a camera on my phone, I want pictures, I want to record, I want to do video, I want everything, that we should put on the market. The second thing is about the incapability to calculate and predict the consequence of innovation. For instance, when you look about the Facebook database, it's very huge, but it's just in a private company. And what could happen with that? For instance, if you look about what happened in the Second World War with IBM, for instance, that was a disaster. That was terrific, what happened with the database from IBM during the Second World War about the Jewish people. And then the third axis of responsible innovations is the question of the social questions, but the daily consequence in our common lives. For instance, if you look about the famous low energy light bubble, and everybody said, okay, we need to use it. But at the same time, it's definitely not ecologically friendly to produce, because we need some rare earth from China to produce the low energy bubble. So today, each innovation should understand the 3 main axes. It could be from Apple, of course, the unique prism of answering consumers' need. It also, of course, for Facebook, for services, and of course, we have to understand the environment for us.
But you speak as if there's a
wait. Oh.
responsible in the United States is defined differently than it is in France, which is defined differently than it is other places. So this idea of does Apple need to produce 20? Well, certainly for its shareholders, it does. But do consumers need to purchase 20 different models? No. I mean, that's the same Big Mac argument of, obesity in the United States. Who will probably be argued passionately on both sides. So I caution, I feel a little bit that there isn't a universal truth on this, and that gets more murky when you move into non-Western cultures where the moral structure is entirely different and the views on ecology and environment are absolutely different.
Yeah. Maybe someone would like to...
Any other? No? That. In a final point, I wanted to talk about, let's say, is it true that innovation is easier for smaller and more nimble companies? So do we feel, are the bigger companies afraid of innovation to a certain extent? I have a quote here from Gary Hamel. It's taken from The Economist's An A to Z of Business Quotations, and he quotes, "Out there is in some garage is an entrepreneur who's forging a bullet with your company's name on it." To a certain extent, is there some apprehension? Anyone?
I wouldn't say innovation is a matter of size. There are small companies who are stick with their business model and not willing to innovate. And it's a matter of culture and it's a matter of need. But I wouldn't say it's a matter of size.
I have a question from a viewer also, who asks, as a younger associate, sometimes it's hard to get your big ideas heard. Are there any suggestions from anyone on this?
Well, this goes to your second. Somebody who's worked in both large multinationals and small companies. Large companies, by definition, because of the bureaucracy, are much less innovative. Even if you talk to people who work at Google, as the company's gotten larger, the smartest people leave because they don't have the flexibility, they can't surface the problems. And where ideas will be heard. Larger companies, to me, in my experience, by definition, are far less innovative, though the academia and the business press love to focus on the Apples, the Googles, and the Starbucks. But at the end of the day, for the most part, they're pulling ideas from smaller entities rather than innovative on scales that I think.
Very hard to.
Okay, so following on my, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so following on my comments on usage of big data in organizations to drive innovation, and the biggest hurdle for organizations to adopt analytics in their marketing, leveraging on big data, is the culture. So it's in a process. This still depends on experiences of the manager instead of leveraging on a data-driven culture. So I think what I can suggest to the young analytics, trying to massage this big data and trying to squeeze out insights out of it, how to create this kind of culture to support this kind of innovation in the organization, is you have to plan for a very, very quick win. Okay, it cannot take a long time. You plan a quick win, but this win must be impactful. You need to show directly return on investment. For example, you don't show to your top executive the change of your page views of the time on your page. You directly plan the return on investment of your marketing budget. This end-to-end result. Second, you need to discreetly quantify the benefits for your business case. You have to rule out the confounding effects, saying the improvement in our organizational performance is because what our small group, this kind of very innovative way of playing data, is not because of that other factors. Last is you have to communicate this win. Otherwise, the people will not know what you have done, what are the impacts on the organization. So I think through this kind of initiatives, you are able to bring this kind of innovation in your company. And little by little, you will create a culture for data-driven. Yeah.
Any other final comments?
Well, coming back to the topics we've covered, I would advise first to focus on people, focus on people needs, focus on the use, focus on what you can help people make today. So what are their dreams? What are the fears they wake up with, and you can cover, and find the right technique to process that use down to the user. So focus on the people, focus on the needs, and try to remove what's not key to people when they whatever product or services you are innovating.
Well, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. This discussion will be up online at knowledge.essec.edu if you'd like to watch it afterwards. And we'll see you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll cut it here. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to stop the